Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. Welcome to another tutorial-oriented episode of our Might and Magic 6 run. Now, this episode's gonna be all about arena combat, and I'm pretty excited about this. Another thing I'm excited about, unrelated to the game, but related to real life, is that I finally got my second vaccine dose today, so I'm really happy about that. That's right, I got my second shot, feeling pretty good. And speaking of shots, we're actually going to be taking some shots in this video, come to think of it. And by shots, I of course mean some gunshots. Specifically, some shots from our blaster rifles, which is gonna be how we deal with the high-level arena combat, which is what this video is about. Now, right now in this game, in this save, it's Friday, and I'll have to wait a couple days to start our first actual arena combat, but before I get to that, there is some background information to talk about, just generally about what the arena is like. And one thing I'll start out with is a kind of explanation for why I'm only doing a video on high-level arena combat. The best way to do that is to show you what low-level arena combat is like. And as luck would have it, I have a save from way earlier in the game, from before I entered Paradise Valley when we were still level 24. And as luck would have it, it's Sunday today, which means today is a day that we can go to the arena. You can go every Sunday, and you go to the arena via the stables in Castle Iron Fist, and the normal stable timings apply, meaning whenever the stables are open on Sunday, the only place they will take you is to the arena. And yes, let's just go there, and I'll show you what low to mid-level arena combat looks like. We'll just go in. See, it's taking us to the arena.
Hitch up the horses.
Alright. Now, before
I
we
had a bad feeling about this place.
start arena combat, let's take a look around. You'll see the arena is a special location. It looks very much like a coliseum, and given that, and given the fact that we're going to be engaging in some gladiatorial combat, I couldn't help myself and I had to make the Russell Crowe gladiator reference in the in the thumbnail. But I think you'll forgive me for this one because it is appropriate. And the thing about the arena layout is that it's not just cosmetic. So one thing you can do, if I actually do have the jump spell, is that you can actually propel yourself into the air and into these stands. And what this will do is, for enemies that can't fly, you can then pop out and take pot shots, although you'll see that the physics, because the arena is technically considered an indoor environment, are a bit wonky. So if you do this, it'll launch you in the air, which means you'll have less control and enemies might hit you a few times. So rather than running, you'll want to walk and then take your shots and duck back in. And this works for low to mid-level arena combat because there will be a lot of enemies that can't fly, and they'll just be like gathering in spots in the ground, and you can herd them into areas and use area of effect spells. That's not going to be the case for the proper arena combat we'll be doing later, but I just wanted to mention this is a little thing you can do. Another thing that's very important is that even though, let's look up, even though we can see the open sky and it's a you know, beautiful, you know, lots of fresh air kind of environment, it is technically considered an indoor area. And why is that important? It means that we can't fly, we can't cast spells like Meteor Shower, we can't cast spells like Starburst. So that is something to make note of, and this is gonna become really important. I guess it's important at all levels, is that because this is technically an indoor environment and because you can't fly, you might nonetheless be fighting enemies that can fly, and they aren't restricted. They can carry on and gain altitude, and they are the main enemies that will undermine your tactic of hiding, you know, inside the stands, because they can simply keep on rising up in the air until they can just fly over to where you are and start shooting at you from above. So that tactic that I mentioned is a very niche tactic that very quickly stops being relevant, especially at later levels once most of the enemies are flying. Now let's just take a look at the kind of enemies that we'll see at this level.
Hello.
Just for fun. I'll do Lord, the highest difficulty, because that's the kind of gamer I am. The highest difficulty is the only one I care about. Straight away I'm gonna essentially pause the game by holding right click. Let's see what the game has spawned for us. We have Terrible Eyes, a whole bunch of them. We have Defenders of Varn, we have Medusas, we have Magyar Matrons, another Terrible Eye, more Magyar Matron, a Dwarf Lord, okay. Another Terrible Eye, more Defenders of Varn, and more Magyar Matrons. And straight away, you're gonna get a sense of why I don't like arena combat at low to medium levels. It's because it's just a random assortment of creatures that will have different types of damage that they do to you and different types of damage that they are immune to. On one of my test saves, I had a bunch of Diamond Gargoyles show up, and those are physical immune enemies. So it's not even that it's difficult, it's just that it becomes too annoying to then keep track of which enemy is in front of you. You can't set one quick spell and then just use it. You have to do a lot of manual selection and manual targeting, and it just results in a lot of tedium. So it's just what I wanted to show, is that at low to mid levels you'll get this mixed bag of enemies, and I guess the goal is to figure out how to deal with them. We don't care about low to mid levels, we care about high level combat. Right. Now we're almost almost ready to start engaging in our high level arena combat, but before we do, let's talk about what kind of a build you'll need. Now the main things you're gonna need are, you'll need to be far enough in the main quest so that you have access to the blaster rifle weapon. There are also blaster pistols, but I'll be using the blaster rifle. Does more damage, which is the main thing we're gonna need. The other thing to know about blaster rifles is that if you cast the haste spell, or even better, if you cast Hour of Power, which gives you haste along with a bunch of other cool spells, if you do that, then you essentially have no delay between attacks. You can just keep shooting as fast as the game is able to cycle between characters. And this is, I mean, it's debatable whether the game was intended to do this or if this is, you know, a coding oversight. But I think of it as something intentional, right? You know, if you're good enough, like, you unlock rapid fire. Let's just think of it that way. This is gonna be the main thing that enables us to do this high-level combat in a manageable and not so frustrating way. And one important thing to know about this weapon type is that you can hold a shield in your offhand, and that's fine, but if you hold a weapon in your offhand, and I'll do this by putting weapons in, sorry, not axe, but a sword can go in the offhand, and another sword can go in your offhand, you'll see that now Serena is the only one getting the really quick rate of fire, and everyone else is only just firing occasionally. That is because if you have something in the offhand that is not a shield, aka if you have something in the offhand that's another weapon, then the recovery rate will be set to the offhand weapon, even though that isn't what you're actually using. So by removing those weapons, we are once again getting the rapid fire that we want. Other than that, one important thing we're gonna need is somebody with light magic, specifically somebody who can cast Divine Intervention. That is gonna be pretty important. Now, I think that's enough background information. There is a little bit more that I want to share, but I think the rest of it can wait until after our first bout of high-level combat. So, we have some time to kill. I'm gonna rest at the inn once. I'm not gonna rest at the inn again for one very important reason. That reason being that resting at the inn put me at 6 a.m. and I don't want to be at 6 a.m. when I go to the arena. I guess I'll rest and heal. I wasted a food unnecessarily. I could have had a cost of only one food if I had been resting on the grass, but that's okay. I mean, we can create food whenever we want, that's not a problem. But we're gonna rest until dawn now. And we are now in Sunday. Day 7 is Sunday. And now we can go to the arena. Straight away, without
I've got a bad feeling about this place.
wasting time, I'm gonna cast my spells. I'm gonna cast this. Now I'm just gonna wait for Serena to recover, cast our final buff. This last one isn't important, but I like to cast it anyway. We have enough time. And now I'm gonna go for the Lord difficulty. And straight away, as soon as you begin, your reflexes are gonna be tested. And I hope I'm still as sharp as I was in my practice sessions, because sometimes things go pretty bad, and there is a bit of luck element as well. So, immediately, you saw the enemies that spawned were very different from what we saw earlier. Specifically, this place is now full of gold dragons and nothing else. I went into turn-based mode because I now need Serena to cast Divine Intervention, a spell that only works when the game is in this sort of phase, either sunrise or sunset. Having cast that, I will then use the rest of my time. I guess I'll repair my items, but the main thing you want to repair is your blaster rifles. Because when they get knocked out, then your characters start shooting with their bows, which number one, doesn't do a lot of damage, and number two, shoots very slowly. So now we can go back to our rapid fire, and this opening section is the hardest part of this arena combat. And once we get through this, I again went into turn-based mode to bring the game to a stop, because Serena took a bit of damage, and a couple of people had their stuff broken.
Good as new.
Mostly you'll want to repair just your weapons, but you'll also want to repair some of your other items, because the dragons might break some of your rings that are giving you, for example, health or spell point bonuses, and you don't want to lose a health bonus at the wrong time. And now we've gotten through the hard part, meaning we got through this part where dragons were shooting us and we had no means to defend against them. And sure, I'll cast Divine Intervention for, I think, the final time? Is anything else broken?
Good as new.
Sure. I'll fix everything up. And now, the next objective, having killed this group of dragons, which we could not hide from, is to kill this group of dragons, which we can hide from behind this wall. By the way, it's up to you whether you go left or right. The arena is symmetrical. I just go to the right because that's just what I'm used to. It just feels a bit more natural doing it that way. Now, how are we going to deal with those dragons? If we walk around, we're going to start taking hits from these guys. We are instead going to do something kind of funky. We're going to cast Jump. It's going to put us on the ceiling. We're going to shoot. We're going to shoot until I see someone go to yellow health. And we're going to go down. And now, I think we're out of Divine Interventions. Or maybe that was our final one. I was expecting to not be able to cast that, but that's a nice little bonus.
Fixed.
Let's just fix up all our stuff.
I've repaired it. Good as new.
Alright, and now we're gonna keep on doing this. This is I guess, the second hardest part of this, but it's much easier than the first part because all we have to do is kill these guys, and we do have an escape hatch if they start to do a lot of damage to us. And I think now surely we're out of interventions. Yep. That was our last one, but that's okay. Now we can go back to the old ways of healing, which is shared life and power cures.
Fixed.
And
Good as
let us just
Good as new.
fix up all our stuff, although now it's straightforward because we're at the point where we can... One of those guys seem to be... Yeah, glitching. Oh, he's trying to run. How did he... Anyway, we'll deal with them later. What I will talk about, now that I'm, you know, on top of the entrance like an absolute boss, just looking down at all of these enemies, I'll talk about what high-level arena combat actually means. And you basically can think of it in terms of the type of monsters that will spawn. When I say high-level arena combat, I mean arena combat where the only enemy that spawns is the gold dragon, the highest level enemy in the game, at level 100. This will start happening once your party level is above level 100, and you'll see we are well above level 100. So these are the only enemies that can spawn. The other thing to note is that while this is the highest level of arena combat, the highest level of enemy that can spawn, it is not the most difficult kind of arena combat you can have. The most difficult kind actually happens when you're between level 90 and 100, because the other enemies that are in the 90 to 100 range are Supreme Titans and Terminator units. And those enemies, while they don't have as much health as Gold Dragons, and while I assume they don't do as much damage as Gold Dragons, they do have the ability to do one-hit KOs. Like, they have a chance... they have a chance to knock your characters out in one hit. And even a couple of them, if they show up, can really ruin your day, because their special abilities trigger way more often than they should. Now, the way, like, if you think you're enough of a badass, you can do arena combats in that level range and fight those enemies, and more power to you. But honestly, I consider it a little bit too annoying, especially because the game unfairly restricts you by this thing of like considering it an indoor area. You can't fly. There are a lot of strong spells you can't use, and it doesn't restrict the enemies. Like, they're able to fly, no problem. So that restriction, meaning I just have to stand on the ground and take hits from enemies that are one-hit KOing me, that's not my cup of tea. The other thing, so I started out in the center there, and I ran all the way here. Like, you might think, you might try to be clever. You might think, well, what if before you started arena combat you set a Lloyd's beacon, and that way you could get there quickly, you would attract fewer dragons from here, you'd have fewer targets, you'd be able to take them down quicker. Now, I like the way you're thinking. It's very creative. That's a, very smart idea. Only problem is, Lloyd's beacon cannot be cast inside the arena. That is another restriction that the game places on you. If it was allowed, you could do all kinds of things, like you could set up a beacon up there in the stands, although it would be less useful against these guys. You could do all kinds of fun things, but sadly the game does not allow you to do it. I think I've talked enough about the mechanics of the arena. Let's now finish this arena combat. And because there are just small numbers of enemies, I don't really have to care too much about... Okay. Don't have to care too much about the damage they're doing. I just have to take them out. The game does have a very kind of funny, system where the range at which the game thinks you're close enough to target an enemy is slightly different from the range at which you can actually damage an enemy. And both of those are different from the range at which enemies can actually damage you. So ranged combat, especially if you're trying to stay far away from enemies, can get pretty interesting. And by interesting, I mean mostly pretty buggy. And I think that will have been our last target. Okay. Let's go. Well, before we go claim our reward, let's fix our broken stuff.
Fixed.
It's fixed.
And
Hello, how
let's
are you?
collect our reward. We get not a massive amount of gold, especially considering how much we have and how easily you can accumulate gold if you do the right things in the game. But, it's a nice amount. And more importantly, we got something in our... Excuse me, I was distracted by the loud sound of a vehicle outside. What I was gonna say was we got something on our character sheet. We've completed one arena combat at the Lord level, which is the highest level, and that was one of my goals, because this is a completionist run, so I wanted to do at least one of those. We're gonna do not just one, but we're gonna do a second one. Why am I doing a second one? Well, it's because for the first one, I used Divine Intervention, which basically gave me a full heal, and I used it 3 times. I really only needed it twice. But, some might look at that and argue that I wouldn't have won if it wasn't for Divine Intervention. And indeed, some people consider Divine Intervention to be verging on cheating, just because of how big of a bailout it is. And fair enough. So, for that reason, we're gonna do one more arena combat. We're gonna do it on the same Lord difficulty. We'll have the same array of gold dragons to fight, but this time I won't be using Divine Intervention. Now, why am I flying to Mist right now? Well, it's because when you exit the arena, it puts you one day forward. So it was Sunday when you started, and it puts you at Monday. The time of day is preserved, it just sets you one day into the future. And I could rest and wait 6 days, but the problem is, if you do that, you incur slight penalties to your reputation. It decays over time. And while reputation isn't that important a statistic, you may not want to incur that much of a penalty. And, you know, you might, for instance, be saving up reputation to become Light Magic Master, which you can't do unless you have a saintly reputation. Or, like me, you might simply want to preserve your saintly reputation, which is the highest rank, and just, I guess, for bragging rights, you might want to keep that saintly reputation alive until the end of the game, and so you might not want to just waste days unnecessarily. So for that reason, I've come to Mist, because this is my method for avoiding reputation gain, reputation loss, while still advancing time. We'll go... I think what we want to do is, we want to take the 3 days to Silver Cove. And traveling like this will advance in-game time, but will not incur reputation decay. At least, I'm pretty sure. It works like this for overland travel, and it also works like this for a training, and I'm pretty sure for coaches and ship travel it's the same. Now that's set us 3 days into the future, but that's not quite enough. We need to go another 3 days, because we were at Monday, we want to go to Sunday. So we need to kill another 3 days, so we're just going to go straight back to Mist, and we're going to go here, and we're going to take literally the same ship, and it's set us at Sunday. There are other ways to do it, other combinations. All you need to do is some form of travel that gives you a total of 6. And these times will change depending on what NPCs you have. So certain NPCs will reduce the time for ship travel, certain NPCs will reduce the time for overland travel on foot, others will reduce the time of traveling via the coaches. So I can't cover every possibility, but it's not hard to just come up with your own little shorthand for which things will add up to 6 days. Now we're just gonna fly straight to the arena, and yeah, we're gonna do this combat, and we're gonna do it without using Divine Intervention. And indeed, at this time of day, we wouldn't be able to use Divine Intervention even if we wanted to, because it is neither dawn nor dusk. Just to remind you, Divine Intervention only works with the rising or the setting of the sun. I could wait until the setting of the sun, but I already said the goal here is to not use Divine Intervention. So what else can we use? Well, the only other thing we can do to heal ourselves is just literally using healing spells. And so that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be leveling up everyone's body magic. I guess take body magic as far as it can go, because I don't think there's any other skill that I would consider useful enough to be investing skill points in this late in the game. So we've given a big buff to the body magic and therefore healing abilities to our two healers. And yeah,
Need a ride?
now we're gonna go into the arena. We're gonna do all of this again. And because
Perhaps this place isn't the right place for us.
we're not under a time constraint, this time we can simply excuse me, something seems off. Oh, of course we're ready to train because we just completed an arena combat. I was thrown by that because we weren't ready to train, I don't think, at the start of the video. But I've already forgotten what I've done in the first half. That's not a good sign. I'm gonna blame it on a side effect of the vaccine. I don't know if it works that way. It probably doesn't. Don't quote me on that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's just get our buffs. What I was gonna say was because we don't have the same time constraint that we did when we were coming in, where we wanted to do our fighting while we could still cast Divine Intervention. Now we can just relax, take our time, and when we cast our spells, we can wait for the spell sound effect to die down before we immediately open someone else's spellbook, which normally would kill the sound effect. And I always, whenever I can, like to allow these sound effects to play as much as they can. Now, I'm dragging this out a little bit just because I'm not relishing the thought of fighting all of these dragons without Divine Intervention. I'm just gonna cast one cure just to give everyone their
Hello.
or some health. And again, the most difficult part is gonna be right at the beginning. Is it all our spells are cast? Yes. The most difficult part is gonna be right at the beginning, because we are gonna have to fight a bunch of dragons with nothing to shield us. So again, I'm gonna shoot until someone gets to yellow health, and then I'm gonna pause the game. But now, because we don't have a Divine Intervention, we can't instantly heal everyone. So instead I'm gonna have to do Shared Life, which pools our health. And while I'm in this mode, which is when I'm healing, things are gonna be slow. But I guess while I'm here, I can start doing small amounts of damage.
Yes.
I'll cast Incinerate with you. That actually did a good amount of damage. And with you, Zoltan, I'm gonna cast Dragon Breath on this group of dragons. Hopefully we do some good damage. Looks like we got some okay damage, but more importantly, we're gonna be casting some power cures. Hopefully getting some good healing. Another power cure sounds good. Let's cast another Incinerate on one of these guys. That did not do a lot of damage. Let's cast another Dragon Breath. That actually brought a lot of these guys close to dying. And honestly, yeah, keep on curing. Honestly, I think I'm gonna just cast a fireball. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to kill one of them. I wasn't quite, but a Dragon Breath. Dragon Breath against the dragons. I bet they weren't expecting that one, huh? He can do it too. Look how close these guys are to dying. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this way just to make sure my auto-targeting doesn't go in the wrong direction. And now I'm gonna go back into real-time mode. By the way, real-time mode is the only mode in which this works. I went
Fixed.
back into turn-based mode because a lot of our people were firing arrows,
It's
which is the wrong kind of weapon to be using. And that was because these dragons were
I've
breaking
repaired it.
our guns.
I've repaired it.
So we just quickly fixed our stuff. Alright. And now the same situation. The hard part is done. The hardest part is done. But there is another hard part, which is taking out these guys. And we're gonna do it the same way we did it before, which is we're gonna jump up. Except, oh, I did it wrong. I did it wrong, and something's broken.
It's fixed.
See, if you collide with something while you're mid-jump, it will kill your jump. What I was gonna say, this time I'm gonna go into turn-based mode, because these guys look like they're clumped up, which makes them prime Dragon Breath targets. Unfortunately, you don't have any great area of effect damage spells. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cast a Dragon Breath. I'll try to target the ones in the back, but I suspect it's gonna hit the ones in the front. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it hit the ones in the front. And I can tell Serena's rifle was broken.
It's fixed.
Let's carry on curing people with our healing characters. Let's cast another Incinerate. Let's cast another Dragon Breath. We can do this 3 more times. And after we've cast our Dragon's Breaths, we will then go into real-time mode and do it the way we were doing it before. These dragons are getting close to us, and Dragon's Breath will also damage you if you cast it at an enemy that's too close, or if it collides with a piece of the environment that's too close to you. So we don't want that to happen. But I don't think these dragons are going to get close to us quickly enough. And people are healed up enough that I'm just going to use Roderick's turn to shoot. Let's cast another Dragon Breath. That felt like it did good damage. Let's heal up again. Shoot again. I guess shoot one more time. And it looks like the dragons are now keeping their distance, maybe? Let's just make sure everyone's rifles are fine. Right, I'm just waiting for Zoltan to come back to cast his last Dragon Breath, which is a very expensive spell, but with 30 ranks in Dark Magic and with an item boosting Dark Magic, which means essentially these are 45 points in Dark Magic, you can do a lot of damage. And indeed, we've already killed one of them without even using this tactic. But now we're gonna switch back to real-time mode, and we're just gonna mow these guys down. And just like that, the second hardest part of high-level arena combat has been dealt with. And let's just fix up our stuff.
Good as new. It's fixed. Fixed.
Yep, you've always, if you've got this type of shield, you've got to lift it up to check whether your belt is broken. And, oh, and it's something that I haven't mentioned, but it's something that's obvious. Every single one of my characters has Master Repair. Because if I didn't have that, and if only one character could repair, then every time something got broken, especially when something important got broken, like I wasn't quite as ready to jump in as I thought I was, especially when something important gets broken, like your blasters, you would then have to manually drag it into the inventory of the character that has repair. And it would make arena combat far too tedious to do. I'm sure something got broken by that guy.
Good as new.
Just that one thing, okay. That's not so bad. Now let's just finish things up. This actually went a lot better than it usually does, because I mentioned there is a luck element, and that's because with only 4 characters, and with random chance, and with sometimes enemies having tendencies to target particular types of characters based on either their gender or their class, sometimes one of your characters will get focused down within seconds. So a few times in practice, Serena got knocked out, which essentially ended my arena run because there was nobody who could cast Divine Intervention, and every time I cast a healing spell, she would come to life with only like 1 or 2 hit points, and I wouldn't have enough time to cast Shared Life. Ooh, and it was just not a good time. But this time, things were a little bit more in my favor. And putting points into body magic, I think, definitely helped. Otherwise, a lot more time would be wasted healing. And it would be a lot more tedious. And a lot more difficult as well. Because in the very first phase, when the dragons are shooting you and you have nowhere to run, it is essentially a damage race. And if your heals aren't strong enough to keep up with the damage the dragons are doing, then you're gonna lose that race, essentially. Okay, I'm just gonna take a sip of water. My throat is a little dry. Taking a well-deserved drink, because we have just beaten arena combat without using Divine Intervention, and I think...
I've repaired it.
Excuse me.
Good as
I
new.
think we deserve a round of applause for that. Let's just fix up all our stuff. We deserve a round of applause, and if there were people here, surely they would be applauding right now. But in addition to applause, we deserve a reward. We get some more gold. And I believe the gold is based on your level. So had I leveled up my characters in between the 2 arena combats, we would have gotten, I don't know, like maybe 500 or 1,000 more gold. I think it's the level of your party divided by half, multiplied by 1,000 is the formula. But an extra 1,000 gold isn't really gonna make a difference. So there is one last thing to do. We're almost done with this video. One last thing to show, and that thing is how much experience do you get per arena combat? Meaning, is it worthwhile to do this? Is it a viable power leveling technique? So let's just find out. We started at level 115. We did 2 successful arena combats, and I think only the enemies you kill give you experience. The reward at the end only gives you gold. So with those 2 arena combats we've done, by the way, also with the NPCs boosting our experience, 15% from you, 10% from you. So with a 25% bonus on 2 full arena combats, we went from level 115 to
Well done.
117. We gained a grand total of 2 levels.
Well done.
So you can see
Well
that
done.
it's not an impressive amount of experience, which is why arena combat is mostly done for bragging rights. And now that I've done 2, I probably won't do a 3rd. I mentioned earlier that some people consider Divine Intervention to be cheating. Well, a lot of people, a lot of hardcore players of this game, also consider the tactic I was using with the zero cooldown on lasers and the infinite stream to be cheating. So normally you fire lasers pretty quickly, but not that quickly, and it's only through the effect of haste that you get this type of thing. And it looks a bit odd when one of the characters is unable to act, because only one character will be shooting. But yeah, you get this by using haste, and some people consider this to be a little bit too broken. But in my opinion, Excuse me, my throat is really dry right now. But in my opinion, while normal dungeons are fun to do using normal weapons, arena combat would be a bit too much of a pain to do without using this. That's not to say that it isn't possible. You saw that we did some good work using Dragon's Breath, and had we continued that, we could have slowly taken them down that way. It would have taken very long. It just would not have been fun. And the reason I consider it justified for arena combat is because of the way the game unfairly limits you. Now, if things were fair, you would be allowed to fly, the same way the dragons are, and being able to fly would mean that you would be able to dodge some of their shots when they're shooting at you, or a better chance of dodging their shots. And because the game takes that ability away from you, I think it's reasonable to give yourself an unfair advantage in a different category to kind of level things out. So anyway, I think that's gonna be the end of this video. We've covered everything. We covered what low-level arena combat looks like. We covered what your build should look like. We covered how, enemies spawn. We kind of talked about that a little bit with low-level combat, but we mentioned that at high levels only gold dragons will spawn, and that you really don't want to be engaging in arena combat, between 90 to 100, because you don't want to be fighting a whole bunch of Supreme Titans and Terminator units. And then, of course, we did our combats, and we saw how to beat it with Divine Intervention, and we saw how to beat it without Divine Intervention. And yeah, that's it. That is all about arena combat in this game. And it's gonna bring an end to this tutorial video. When we come back with the series, we're gonna return to the Let's Play as normal. So it'll be our usual casual completionist sessions. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you in the next one. So until then, take care.